Good evening, folks, and thanks for choosing to watch my video. Now, this is just a wee waffle on about things about wild camping. Now, if you've watched a few of my videos, you'll notice that before COVID, I used to do a bit of wild camping. Since COVID, I've not done any videos. Not really. Not of wild camping anyway. And I just wanted to show you that a bit of experience that why there's certain products that I won't use, and it's not because they don't work. They all work fantastic. It's just they just don't work for me. And I've got a bit of a hair on. Excuse me, I've got a bit of a hair on me tongue. They just don't work for me. And I find sometimes when you listen to other people's opinion on certain products, you get an insight of how other people are thinking how things work, and you think, that's a clever idea, that. Yeah, I've never really thought about that. And that kind of gives you how, what's the word? How encourages you how you're going to choose what products you're going to use on your your camping adventures. Because if you sat there and listened to everybody would go out and buy a Hillyberg. Hillyberg's best tent in the world. You've got to have one of them. And actually, it's not. You can't dispute they're very good tents, but they don't suit everybody. If that were the case, I'd have one. And however, I don't. And the reason why I don't is for several reasons. Not because of price. But anyway, we're not going into that. I'm going into the 5 things that I won't use wild camping. Now, bearing in mind I wild camp in a tent. I don't do none of this bivvying or in a tarp or out like that. I'm too old for that, and I don't like spiders. Simple as that. I hate drafts as well. So, let's get to it. And I'm going to give you the reasons why I don't use these products. Number 1, your dehydrated pack meals. No brand, not necessarily any brands, because they all have the same problems. It's whether you want to be the ones that you pour water in, as in boiling the bag, or the ones that you put in the boiling water and you boil them up and heat them up. Now, regardless of brands, if we go on 2 things, taste, personal. That's a personal thing. So we can't really count that. If we go on price, they're bloody expensive. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the only reason why I will not use them. Because if you are going for a quick overnighter in your, whatever it is, shelter, it becomes bleeding well expensive because they're not cheap. Now, if you work out that a single meal, generally somewhere upwards from £5 up to 10 to 15 quid, I've seen them, and I'm like, won't pay that. Well, you can just go to the supermarket and, well, you can get a really good meal for 5 quid. You know what I mean? And put up with a little bit of bulkiness. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. Bulkiness. Ease of carrying. Bulk. I'm not saying, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not saying that there isn't a market out there. Of course there bloody well is. You know, when people do these expeditions and stuff like that, they're ideal for that. Of course they are. But for everyday wild campers like myself, I just think they're too expensive. And simple as that, that's the reason why I won't buy one. Not because I'm tight, just because I think it is really expensive. Because by the time you've unlucky enough that you've got to go in your car and travel, there's petrol and diesel, and then you've got to buy that, and then it just becomes an expensive overnighter. To me, prices, no. Okay, number 2, British Army style mess tins. Now, I'm not saying that, ladies and gentlemen, that they don't work, because they do. Again, like I said, everything works. It just doesn't work for me. Unfortunately, I don't think they work with a single burner, unless you have something like a burner like the MSR reactor with a big head, burner head. Most people's burner heads are about what, inch and a half, and a mess tin's what, 8 inches, 6 inches wide, and you just think, oh come on, it'll take ages to heat that. And there's no lid to them. They're rattly, they're bulky, they're very cheap. I'll give them that. But you know, when you want them to try and put stuff in a rucksack, you don't want these bulky pans in your pack. You want something that's ideal. You know, you're a single person. You're not cooking for loads of people. So, no. If you're cooking on, like I say, an MSR reactor or an open fire, if you're a wild camp, as in bushcrafter, shall we say, oh, they're brilliant. Absolutely fantastic. Bang them on an open fire, great. Or a hexi burner, like a British Army hexi burner, out like that, brilliant. But on a single burner, gas burner, no, with a burner head like that, nah, they're just too big. It's as simple as that. They're just too big, they're just too bulky, and not ideal for putting in the back of a backpack when space is generally at a premium. So again, it's a for me. What else won't I use? A jet boil. Again, I'm not going to say that they're rubbish, because they're not. They work. They're fantastic. I love the concept, and you can use them, especially if you put a pan stand on them. You can fry on them and all this lot. Again, they're great stoves. They're fantastic stoves. A little bit on the expensive type, but you know, you can get an old style one. You don't have to go out and buy a jet boil. You can go out and buy another one, Fatty Maples and all them lot. But it's the style. Now, for me, camping in a tent, the only reason I would be cooking inside my tent is if the weather is outside is bad. Other than that, I'd be using it outside. So if I am cooking in my tent with a tiny little porch, because let's face it, you know, spaces of a premium in a tiny little tent. You don't want something that's the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Let's face it there, yeah. You don't want the wind blowing the fly sheet onto your cooker, or you don't want to be stood there holding your cooker with one hand and trying to stir it with the other because you're trying to stop it from falling over. They're unstable is what I'm trying to say, and they're too high for a little tent. Other than that, brilliant. Other than that, they're absolutely fantastic. They boil water dead quick. I know they do. I've got one. I just don't use it that often. So for me, for people who use them in a tent, they're also quite bulky as well. But I'll forgive that because of what they are. But for me, if you're somebody who uses them for walking or whatever like that, they're fantastic. If somebody who's going to use them in a tent, think of safety. I would not want the wind blowing the outer fly onto my stove and thinking, oh God, bloody hell, is it going to fall over? Is it stable? Is it this? Is it that? So for me, because they're no good in the tiny little tent, it's a for me. Sorry. Great stove, but it's a thumbs down for me. Next one. What is it? The metal water bottles. You know the ones you can get. You can get them in the pan shops. You can get them in the B&M. You can get them on bargains. You can get them all. I think one of the most popular brands is Sigs. Is it? If I remember, that's how you pronounce it. Sigs. And don't get me wrong, ladies and gentlemen. I know they have their the good size and the bad size. People cook in them. People, you know, heat water in them. They can do whatever they like. But for me, they're just too bulky. That's it. At the end of the day, there's things out there that are cheaper, that fold, and once you've done with it, emptied the water out of it, what you can do then? You've still got this bulkiness of a water bottle. But if you'd have bought something that's collapsible, you've now, as soon as you've emptied it of all the water, you can collapse it and give yourself a lot more space. And that's as simple as that. That's the only reason why I wouldn't use one. And they're noisy. God, they're noisy. You only have to put them somewhere and they go cling, 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 cling. And that'd drive me mental. I'd end up picking it out of my pack and lobbing it. That one, because that's littering. Anyway, it leads me to my last one. The flint and steel or fire starters. You know, the ones that you scrape down and it makes a spark. Now, I understand why folks want them. I understand why folks like to use them. But at the end of the day, I'm a wild camper. I'm not a bushcrafter. I don't want to go back to basics. I just want to fire up my stove and cook something. If I was going to put one in my pack for a backup, ace. But why would I want to do that either? When I can go to somewhere and get a couple of lighters for a quid. Put one in a bit of a paper, a plastic bag, lob it in my pack. It's a spare all the time. I've never ever, in all my years of wild camping, got my lighter wet. So it's all like these folks going, oh, if your lighter's wet, it won't light and all this, that. If you getting your lighter wet in your pack, you are doing something stupidly wrong. Simple as that. But if you're one of these people that like to use these and go back to primitive tools, well, fair dues to you, mate. I'm not going to slag them off. They do work. I know, of course they do. But for me, modern day wild camping, nah, why the hell would I go and do that when I can click, click, dush? Anyway, most modern new stoves have got these piezo lighters. You don't need them. You don't need them anymore. Well, that's just 5 things that I use. Take it or leave it. That's just 5 things that I use, that I won't use, rather. Now, I can do you a couple of things that I will use. And the reasons why. I always use a 2-man tent. Now, I've used a single-man tent, and I find them restrictive, is the word I'm saying. Especially in the winter, I prefer a 2-man, definitely, 100%. And I prefer something that's got 2 porches. And the reasons for this is, in the winter is when if something was going to go wrong, whether it be you or whether it be your friends or whatever it is, it will always happen in the winter months. When the storms are kicking in, when the snows come down. It won't be in the summer. It don't matter in the summer if your tent breaks. But in the winter, it does. That's when the shit hits the fan. Now, if you've got a 2-man tent and your friend's got a 2-man tent, if one of them shall break, shall we say, you can always bunk up with your friend. And that's the reason why I always use a 2-man tent. Safety. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. I would put up there with that little bit more extra weight to sacrifice something with safety. Always. That gets me back onto the Hillyberg Sulos. Now, I know everybody rates on about them, and don't get me wrong, I'm not an idiot. I've watched the videos on YouTube and I've noticed that they can take on all but a hurricane. But are they suitable, really, for Four Seasons Kenton? Because they're only a single-man tent. They've only got a single little tiny porch. And these people must be daft. Because how do you keep, apart from taking the inner and moving your inner out, inwards, so you can get more space in your porch, how are you supposed to keep the dry stuff dry and your wet stuff separate? There ain't a lot of space in a Hillyman Sulu. So, I'm like, not really ideal, is it that? So anyway, what else do I always use? I always carry 2 torches. A head torch and a little pocket torch. They don't have to be brilliant. And I always carry batteries or a power back for whichever. If you've got a torch that needs charging, which modern torches are, carry a power pack and make sure it's charged. Most torches now, they can take batteries and a power pack. Me, I'd take them both. I'd just take both. There's nothing worse than going up in the middle of the night and having to bail and your bloody torch is gone dead and you ain't got no spare batteries. That would just be lunatic. You know, it's hard coming down. I've been there, coming down off a mountain using the light from your mobile phone. It's not ideal, is it? So on that regards, I hope these little tricky things, tricks, I wouldn't say they were tricks, ideas that I use just to help me through my wild. You'll choose your own things, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you will. Well, I'm hoping my opinions helped. If not, thanks for watching anyway. Ciao. Keep on wild camping.